Hey guys, I'm back, and I am here just to give you a quick recap of what day one of the TI4 tournament had to offer. Of course, today was the Wildcard playoffs as well as the Solo Mid Championship. The Solo Championship, not going to really go over it in too much detail, so keep in mind this video will have all of the spoilers, but the winner of the Solo Mid Championship was Espor from Team Alliance, beating out Ferrari 430 in the finals. So I think he gets like a Divine Rapier statue or something. But anyways, going on to the more interesting stuff, Team Liquid managed to take down Team MVP Phoenix in the finals of the Wildcard bracket and moved on to the grand stage. So just want to talk about those matches really briefly. So in the first match, it was MVP Phoenix versus Virtus Pro. And I'm a Virtus Pro fan. I'm a fan of those old school Dota 1 players, whether it be Arzard, and as God, because he was a really, really strong mid with that Moscow 5, and of course, you know, I just like his style. He doesn't really care about too much. But Virtus Pro faced against MVP, and MVP definitely brought something new to the table. In the first game, they drafted a Warlock. They ran Bristleback in as many games as they could possibly fit him in, and it seemed to have VP's number. And the thing about VP is that they're a team that once they start making one mistake, they will keep making mistakes. And in the first game, I felt like VP had a decent draft. They had a Tinker, they had a Skyrath as the silence against the Brewmaster, and there was really nothing to shut down the Tinker. But I do think VP made too many mistakes, and some of those mistakes were that NS got caught out of position a bit too much on the support the Wraith King. And I do think the draft had a pretty big factor in terms of VP losing the game, because they farmed Illidan on a safe lane Skyrath Mage, and yeah, the Skyrath Mage put in a lot of work. He got off to a very, very strong start, gave up a huge spree, then got off into another spree, and then gave up that spree. So in the end, he gave up a lot of gold, but he was able to get a lot of farm. But the problem with Skyrath as a safe lane farmer is that he's not really a strong space creator, because he's not very mobile. He's pretty squishy, and he doesn't dominate teamfights. He dominates single-target lockdown abilities. And MVP Phoenix, they showed that all they wanted to do this turn was group up as 5. And they did that once they realized, okay, VP are looking for pickoffs with the Tinker, Global Ganks, as well as the Skyrath Silence Lockdown. Another thing about the safe lane Skyrath is that he's even worse than OD when he's farming, because BKB shuts down everything he has. And at least OD can contribute by using his ultimate to blow up supports, but Skyrath is a single target focused safe lane carry if you decide to play him as that. And once the other team got BKB on the Brewmaster, no silence ticked in. Bristleback didn't really care too much about what was going on. And I think the Skyrath Mage pick just didn't work out very well for VP. And that was a reoccurring theme in game 2, where VP decided to safe lane farm a Dazzle. And Dazzle, again, he can use the farm, but he's not a space-creating, self-sufficient solo hero. And VP tried to take a style out of EG's playbook. Let's farm up our mid-hero, whether it be God on the Tinker or God on Shadow Fiend in game 2, and have our tri-lane create space for him. The problem is that when EG does it, they have, I guess, better time rotations, even though VP had some decent rotations. But I think the more important thing is that Mason is just much more equipped to playing that style. He's used to playing self-sufficiently. He plays Mirana, he can play Weaver, he can play Brewmaster. So if he needs to fight with a hero like Brew, he will fight, and Arteezy will get space that way. If he needs to just self-sufficiently farm with the Weaver, alright, you know, you can just leave him by my lonesome, I'll farm up with the Weaver. But oftentimes these days we see him with like Mirana and Storm, heroes who can immediately contribute and just provide a lot of utility. Doom, Mason has a ridiculously strong record on Doom. Meanwhile, Dazzle, he's not mobile. Again, he doesn't really pump out too much damage outside of some physical right clicks. And the thing about Weave is that it does take quite a bit of time for it to get going. And Shadow Fiend, he rushed the BKB after the Midas, and in the end the Shadow Fiend BKB charges were just worn down a bit too much, and MVP Phoenix managed to destroy VP in 2-0 fashions. In the second matchup, Liquid vs CIS, Liquid just used their experience, just used overall solid drafts, emphasizing aggressive tri-lanes and using Koikpa as an Arteezy role. See a recurring theme here. Just have our mids farm up a ridiculous amount, and then use our other heroes to create space. But DC played pretty well. He had a Razor vs Void matchup in one of those games, and CS just looked very discombobulated. There was a lot of miscommunication, and I don't think they were on the same page, and Liquid dominated them with pretty much ease. Or, yeah, 2-0. So in the grand finals, it was Liquid versus MVP. In game 1, it was a relatively close game, but MVP Phoenix gave up Dire Lycan in game 1, and Dire Lycan, he will get the Aegis, he will split push you, and it's just so very annoying to deal with it. And alongside that, they gave up a 4th pick Batrider for Demon, who is now relegated back into the offlane role. So 4th pick Batrider, Lycan, Mirana for Bulba. Just a whole host of problems that MVP Phoenix are like, alright, let's group up as 5, let's take down these towers with Bristleback, let's just go ham with Slark. And Liquid were just like, alright, we'll try this for a bit, and then they realized, why do we have to fight them? We have Batrider, we can sit in our base, get a free pick off if they decide to push up high ground with the lasso combination with the Force Staff, and Lycan can just split push all these other lanes. And eventually that's what Liquid came down to. The MVP Phoenix took a Ranger X, but Liquid just overall took control of the game and managed to beat MVP Phoenix in game 1. In game 2, hey, Lycan showed up this time on the rating side for Liquid, and Liquid just steamrolled right off the bat. Wei-Chu was pretty strong on his Sand King, TC really showing on his Razor, and just overall MVP Phoenix just couldn't really do anything. They picked up a really greedy lap. They picked up a Void for the safe lane. They picked up an aggressive Charlie Naga, which managed to get a 25-minute Radiance, which is ridiculous. So it didn't even go for drums, just went boot Radiance. And they picked up a mid-solo Templar Assassin, so that is as greedy can be. And they got punished. Liquid starved them out and eventually just rolled over MVP. So Liquid moved on, so one of our predictions was right. So, yay me. Anyways, moving on to tomorrow's matches. This is where the going gets really tough, as each team plays each other once over the course of 4 days, and the top 8 move on. I think it's like the top 6 or top 7 move on straight away, and then there's a minor playoff brackets from I think like the bottom 4 place teams, and then the winner of that moves on. I'm not really too sure. Middle 8 teams enter playoff phase 3, bottom 6 teams eliminated. So there is a playoff phase 3, and so bottom 6, 8 teams move. So top 4 move on. Yeah, there's 16 teams. So top 2 move on, bottom 6 get owned, and then there's a elaborate playoff bracket. So not even bother gonna try to figure that out, because, well, that's what happens. Anyways, let's see. Oh, yeah, so that's how it goes. Loser wins, so the losers move on to the losers bracket, and then the winners go on. That's how it is. Anyways, enough of that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But just looking at tomorrow's matches, we also brought up Dota 2 on, should give us a bet indicator of what tomorrow's matches might be and their odds. So the first match is going to be EG versus C9. I think EG holds a huge advantage. C9 not been looking too sharp. They managed to give Alliance a lot of trouble. They managed to get 2nd place in the Dream League. But EG are just a very stable team. The one downside about EG is that sometimes they can take a bit of time to get warmed up. They finished last place in the Dream League. They didn't get off to a good start in the Summit. So it could take a while, but I think PPD is just too solid a drafter, and EG's game plan and execution are just way too solid. And EG is one of those teams, you can take all our towers, but good luck trying to break our base. And C9, they've shown that if they manage to lose 1 or 2 team fights, they can just get very set back in terms of momentum. So I think EG do have a pretty significant edge. Keep in mind, they're all best of 1s. Newbie versus LGD, Newbie along with IG and DK. Well, Newbie has been taking it to DK, only been losing about, I think the overall score between Newbie and DK in the past month and a half is like something like 10-12 DK. So Newbie ridiculously strong. LGD qualified. They're all right, but I don't think they're on Newbie's level. Newbie should take that pretty convincingly. DK versus Fnatic. This is going to be the true test, as DK did lose to Fnatic at the Summit, but that was against an Excalibur Tinker. That was against Excalibur's first game, and the Tinker problem was not there, but now they're playing with the Era. And DK, if they don't make the same mistake that VG did, they'll ban out the Wisp, and it'll be interesting to see how Fnatic does play. I like Fnatic quite a bit, but yeah, everybody loves DK for a good reason. I mean, Ice, I do think he's probably the best offlane player in the world, and he is one of my favorite players in general because his offlane is just phenomenal. And you know me, I'm a big fan of those offlane players in general, but I think this is probably the most coin flippy matchup, but I think DK should be able to squeak it out, assuming of course they have sufficient measures to either ban Wisp or deal with the Wisp if they let it through. Alliance versus IG. IG, what more can be said? They have just been dominating everybody recently, and keep in mind they 22-0'd EG in their last game. IG did win ESL 1, and Alliance, usually they have a very strong track record against the Chinese teams, so I'm not usually hesitant to bet against Alliance against Chinese teams, but recently they have been looking nearly as strong. They didn't place that well in the WPC Ace. They didn't do very well against, I think it was IG in the ESL 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they played against IG, and they ran some Phantom Winter strat, and they ran another strat where IG just ran over them. And IG's playstyle, I think, can be figured out, but in the first game, I think in a best-of-1 format, IG will be able to take down Alliance. But again, this might be your bet. If you want to play the odds, you might want to bet on Alliance, because Alliance definitely do have the capabilities to beat IG, and this is definitely a closer matchup than the odds will indicate. These other matchups, I think the odds are pretty spot on, except for even the Fnatic, but it would still be 70-30 in favor of DK in my opinion, in that matchup. Liquid versus Navi US. Navi US, I mean, all we've seen them is at the Summit, and outside that, I haven't really been seeing them too much. They did beat Liquid in the qualifiers to earn a spot at TI4, but Liquid, they've shown some very solid play. If you watch the games, they didn't really make too many mistakes against CIS, and then against MVP Phoenix, they made some mistakes, but they've shown a lot more versatility in their draft. They've shown that they are not afraid to run aggressive tri lanes, and they've shown a lot more decision making. Bulb has been captaining Demon, is now on the off lane, which I think is his best role. And if they run EG style drafts where they have TC on a very stable hero that they can fight with, and if Quick was not shut down, I do think Liquid does have an edge, and I think the odds do reflect that. So Liquid, I will bet on them in this matchup. Next match, well, I guess that's Liquid versus Navi, or Navi NA. I guess I'll just scroll down, so forget about that. It's against one of these. Oh, it's TBD, so that's that match. Anyways, Arrow versus EG. EG by a long shot again. What did the odds say? Arrow versus EG. Yeah, EG just been looking so strong. Arrow, they haven't shown that they are the class of Southeast Asia just yet, and I think Southeast Asia compared to EG, it's close, but not really. I think EG are just way too strong. They've beaten DK, they gave IG a good fight, except until that game 3. And I refuse to believe that IG is so much better than EG that EG got shut out 22-0. Keep in mind, EG did win the first game, and they did play quite a number of sets in a row because of the delayed bracket ESL. So I think EG have a pretty significant advantage. They know to shut down DDZ, and they know, alright, give DDZ Tinker Invoker. PVD will have done his research. So I do think EG, these odds reflect this victory for them quite a bit. Titan versus Empire. This is a matchup that is probably the most wild card out of all of these for the first 6, because I honestly don't really know who to bet on. Titan is a team that can go super streaky or can just suck. And Empire is a bit more consistent, but they have shown that their early game is not always the best. They fight better than any other team in the game besides maybe DK and Alliance in terms of team fights. They just know who to focus, when to get in, when to get out. If they're behind, they know exactly how to take a fight, and I think that is Empire's biggest strength. And just based on that, because Titan like to group up and 5-man so early on, and they like to pick some early mid-game heroes for Yamate, whether it be Night Stalker, Queen of Pain. I don't think we're going to see a Night Stalker in this game, but I do think Empire have a reasonable edge in this matchup, and again, the odds do reflect that. Mouse versus Vici. Vici have been looking pretty shaky. I think the style is starting to be figured out a bit more, and Mouse is a team, I mean, they showed a really strong performance against IG. They lost 2-1, but they showed that their super aggressive early strat into just snowballing out of control does work, and I think this format, best of 1, favors Mouse more than any other team. You don't really have to adapt what the other team is doing. You just have to play your own game, and we'll see if Vici can adapt to that. But if Mouse don't get ahead early, Vici will definitely dominate them as the game goes on. But I do think Mouse actually has a slight edge in this matchup, and the odds say Vici have the edge. So that's Liquid versus Navi US. Again, I bet on Liquid. Arrow versus Cloud9. I mean, Cloud9 is one of the other wild cards in the tournament besides Titan and Empire, because they are just so streaky. Again, they put on good performances, but in the games they lose, they get crushed. Except for some Alliance games where they just inevitably lose because Alliance just seems to have Cloud9's number. I will bet on Cloud9 in this matchup, but it's a bit scary because I do think Cloud9 might give up some key heroes for Arrow, whether it be a Tinker for DDZ or some other heroes of that nature. But Cloud9 is a more experienced team. Overall, I think they are better than Arrow, and I do see them coming out ahead in this matchup. The odds again reflect that. DK versus LG. DK should win this in a landslide. DK, one of the most stable Chinese teams, although losing to IG recently. As time has gone on, you know, LGD, sorry to say, DK is just on another level in terms of Chinese teams. Fnatic versus Navi. This is the first Navi matchup, and this is another top coin flip because Fnatic have shown good results against Navi usually, but they're playing with Arrow, who they haven't really practiced for more than a week. Keep in mind that Arrow is just announced as the official player because he had some anxiety illness, which I can sympathize with, but I can also see where Fnatic was coming from, saying, alright, we can't really boot camp with him, and we don't really have a guarantee that he can actually go over there and play in healthy conditions, so let's try our luck with Excalibur. They'll put their foot down, and in the end, I think Fnatic were put into a tough corner, and anybody who says Era's health is more important, obviously that is true, but Era himself, if you didn't want to put more pressure on him, you would just put Excalibur there, because he's going to be putting more pressure on himself. He's going to feel like he let his team down if he wasn't allowed to play it, and Fnatic were not allowed in the tournament. So this is going to be a very, very interesting matchup. I think Navi will ban the Wisp, and what did the odds say? I honestly can't say for sure who has the advantage. Navi have been looking pretty shaky. I think Navi can capitalize on Fnatic's mistakes because Fnatic is one of those European teams that does make a bit more mistakes than the others, but overall their game plan is usually so solid that when they win, they can just overcome their mistakes. So I think Navi is one of the best teams in terms of punishing mistakes, and that's why I think they'll beat Fnatic in this matchup. Newbie versus IG. I mean, Newbie, IG, DK, they've all been running similar strategies. They've been running very tanky heroes with some push, whether it be Rasta or Death Prophet, with some Void shenanigans. And this will come down a lot to the supports. And I think IG's support duo is a bit better than Newbie's support duo, simply because they've had that connection and they've been playing for a long time together, Faith and Chuan. I do think IG have a slight edge, but the odds, what do the odds say? These odds are dead on. IG have a very, very slight edge. Alliance for Titan. I think Alliance should win this. Titan again, they could potentially snowball, but Titan is a team that can make mistakes, and Alliance is definitely the team to capitalize on them. So these odds for Alliance versus Titan, I think these odds are a bit skewed. I'd probably say 65-35 towards Alliance, because Titan is a very talented team. Navi versus Vici. Recently, Navi have had some problems with Vici, and I think in a best-of-1 format, Vici might be able to hold out just by playing a bit more greedy than Navi, been 5-manning a bit stronger, and I think Vici will be able to beat Navi in this matchup. But again, it's Navi, anything can happen. Fnatic versus Navi US. I think Fnatic, this is their first certain win. Navi US has just been, I think they might be the bottom 4 in terms of weakest teams, because keep in mind they've been training together, but they were made only 3 weeks before the qualifiers. They're another wild card, but I think Fnatic, with their veteran presence and just playing together for 3 years, certainly should help. So I think Fnatic should be able to take this. Empire versus Mouse. If there's any team that can counter Mouse's aggressive lineup in the best-of-1 format, it's got to be Empire, and I do favor Empire quite a bit in that case. So where is Empire? Empire versus Mouse. Yep. Alliance versus Newbie. I think Alliance will be able to beat Newbie. They seem to have more control over controlling styles. IG is one of those Chinese teams that can switch up their styles very, very quickly, but Newbie is one of those teams that sort of has a similar style, and I think Alliance will be able to beat this Chinese team in particular. Liquid versus DK, I think DK should be able to beat Liquid, but Liquid again is a team that can't be underestimated. Cloud9 versus Titan. This is a matchup that really will come down to the draft, and I think this might be... Cloud9 has a reasonable schedule. I mean, EG against Cloud9, not going to be good for Cloud9, but this is just a gut feeling. I do think Titan might be able to beat Cloud9 because their support rotation is usually very strong at roaming early, and Cloud9 support's trending to play very greedy. So Titan, I think, has a slight edge, but Cloud9 as the overall experience that should be able to shut down Titan. So Titan, I think, wins in the early game. Cloud9 wins anything past 33 minutes, something around that. So this is actually 50-50. Bet your wares accordingly. I think this matchup is 50-50. Wow. LG versus EG, no problem. They've shown they can beat the top Chinese teams. LG is not a top Chinese team. EG should be able to beat them. LGD, man, they are getting some shit draws on the first day. IG versus Arrow, IG should crush Arrow, no doubt about it. BG versus Empire, I think Empire's 5-man Team 5 lineup is a bit scary, but again, VG is one of those Chinese teams that like the 5-man, and they play some aggressive picks. They like to get Enchantress. So this is another coin flip matchup, and I think Empire has a slight edge in this situation. What is the call? Empire versus VG. Empire has a slight edge. Navi versus Mouse. I think Navi will be able to devise a game plan to stop Mouse's snowball. I think Mouse are playing against some pretty tough opponents first day, and the other teams, they might be able to snowball out of control. So Navi should be able to take this matchup. LG versus Navi US. This is a coin flip, but these are some of the less tested teams, and definitely two of the most prominent underdogs. Honestly, can't really say who for sure should be able to take this. My money's on Navi US because they have more playmakers, and I don't really see LGD make too many plays. But LGD are a bit more stable. I can't really say for sure. If I had to bet, I'd bet on the Americans because America. But this is LGD's chance to win a game on day one. IG versus DK. Recent results have been favoring IG quite a bit, but DK is too good of a team to let that stop them. Still, the momentum is on IG's side, but my gut instinct is telling me that DK will be able to pull something out of the bag, and will be able to beat IG's very, very strong playstyle. So I do have my money on DK in this game. EG versus Fnatic. Fnatic have actually been putting up reasonable results against EG with Excalibur on their side, even without too much influence from Excalibur. So this might be another coin flip matchup. All these Fnatic matchups are pretty much coin flips, but EG, they know how to play against Wisp. They play against Wisp pretty frequently, and Fnatic, their go-to hero is Wisp. Fnatic do tend to play some early game lineups, and that's where EG can sort of come apart. But if EG gets to the late game and it's not a Tiny or an Ember against them for some reason, then I think EG should take this. So I will put my money on EG in this situation. Mouse versus Cloud9. I think Mouse's aggression is going to be a bit too much for Cloud9. Cloud9 usually have a very strong game plan for the first 5 minutes, but that's going to come down to the draft, and I think Mouse's opening picks will determine it, and I think Mouse will not give Cloud9 an inch to breathe. The Cloud9 are the masters of creating something out of nothing in terms of efficiency, but Mouse are the masters in the short time they've been playing together of just shutting teams down. So I do favor Mouse against Cloud9. And what do the odds say? I have no idea. No odds. Oh well. Newbie versus Liquid. Newbie should take this without too much problem. Liquid have not played against any Chinese teams in a long while, and they beat CIS, but Newbie is a different beast altogether, so I think Newbie should be able to take this relatively convincingly. Everest Alliance should take this. They've shown they can beat good teams who play Tinker well, like Cloud9. EE's Tinker is pretty solid. I don't think it's, Arteezy or Excalibur level, but it is definitely very, very good. Alliance have shown they can beat that style, and they've shown they can shut down certain people, even if it does sort of let the other team's heroes run unchecked. But if you shut down DEZ, Arrow have not really shown that they can win super easily in that situation. Vici versus Titan, not really too sure who has the edge in this matchup. Again, Titan play a bit more aggressive in the early game, and they like to 5-man up very early. Again, it's going to come down to supports, and I think in the end, Vici's supports are just a bit more stable in FY and FN, where sometimes we see Net and Extinct. They do a lot, but their lineup might not be able to break Vici's back in time, so I think Vici do have an edge in this matchup. Cloud9 versus Navi Us, Cloud9 should be able to take this with relative ease. Cloud9 are very, very good at just exploiting opponents' weaknesses and using the draft against them. So I think Cloud9 should be able to take this Empire versus Navi. Usually I think Navi has a slight edge in Empire against Empire, and I think that streak will continue, and I think Navi will be able to beat Empire, as Empire sometimes they pick heroes that don't really fit into the meta, like Gyrocopter, and they try to roll with it because they can fight. But if Navi have adapted to the patch, which it's not looking like they have, considering their present tournament results, then they might be in a bit of trouble. But Navi's too smart of a team, and they're going to be hungry for this first place. They're tired of getting second, and I think they'll be able to beat Empire in this situation. DK versus Alliance. Again, Alliance have been having some troubles against Chinese teams, but they've always been able to put up a good fight against DK. This is another one of these coin flip matchups, and I don't think Alliance have played against DK when they've been using their new Wisp Nature's Prophet bullshit, and we'll see if DK respects that, but I wouldn't be surprised if Alliance took this. I think this is another 50-50 matchup. I personally would bet on Alliance, but if you bet on DK, you're obviously correct in your own sense. Fnatic versus Newbie. I think Newbie might not be used to the Fnatic playstyle. They've never played against each other, but I think Newbie's a bit more stable. Liquid versus EG. EG should crush Liquid because they're EG and they crush all other North American opponents very easily. LGD versus Arrow. Can't say at all who has the edge in this matchup. If I had to just close my eyes and point my finger at something, I would bet that it would be it would be Arrow. I think Arrow's split push could be LGD and their 5-man. So in the end, basically I'm saying LGD are going to be in a lot of trouble after day one ends. Fnatic and Navi are going to be involved in a lot of coin flips, as well as Vici, and the team who should be able to get off to the best start if they play up to full potential should be EG. So in first place after day one would be EG and IG. EG. Not too surprising there. If I had to put another person, it would probably be Alliance, because I think Alliance can beat one of these top Chinese teams, and Alliance have a really tough draw on this first day. So those are going to be my top 3 after day one. Bottom 3 are going to be LGD, Arrow, as well as Navi US. So I'll go back, write down my predictions on the video, and we'll see how many I get wrong. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow after day one has ended. Thanks for watching, everybody.